Did you take an ibuprofen for your back when you woke up this morning? Are you still living your life under the misapprehension that Half-Life 3 will ever be released? Does being able to count the polygons on game models fill you with a sense of soothing calm that takes you back to a simpler time when you weren't always carrying around the gremlin of existential dread? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you're probably a gamer of a certain age, like me. Our support group meets in my Discord server. Since the COVID delays are finally mostly cleared out, there's been no shortage of hit games to play in the last year or so. Among these are a lot of indie titles that have gone viral and achieved massive success. What does this have to do with being an old person gamer? We've been blessed with another such sleeper hit in the last month called Abiotic Factor, and if you haven't heard of it yet, it's a first-person, open-world, multiplayer, base-building survival game. Yeah, I know, those are a dime a dozen these days, but the hook for this one is that it's made in the vein of Half-Life and constructed in glorious low-res vision. So put on your peepers and make sure your lower back is properly supported while we get into why the viral hit Abiotic Factor is so damn fun. Obey my cat! Hit the subscribe button. The best elevator pitch I can think of for Abiotic Factor is this. Imagine Half-Life, SCP, and Project Zomboid all played 7 minutes in heaven together and things got way out of hand. Now Half-Life doesn't know who the father of its baby is, but honestly, it's okay because they made their awkward throuple work and now their little pride and joy is ready to go venture out on its own. You play as a scientist reporting for their first day of some good old-fashioned sciencing at a secret underground research facility in remote Australia. Of course, there's some kind of kerfuffle going on down there, and you unwittingly waltz into a nightmare catastrophe. After a quick crash course in specimen containment,
you know what? Just stomp on it.
And plugging things in, two of the most important skills for any scientist, you are unexpectedly thrown into the fray. It's up to you and your fellow scientists, or you by yourself because single player is an option, to try and make your way through this sprawling, bizarre facility to make it back to the above ground world and escape. To do this, you're going to have to make it through a gauntlet of treacherous territory. There's alien monsters, zombies, Black Ops mercenaries, this thing. Oh! And if any of this sounds vaguely familiar, I don't know what you're talking about. There's also portals to parallel dimensions from which the unknowable horrors can break into our world through the thin veil between the two. And as you answer this call to be the hero of the few remaining survivors that you need to be, it's all encapsulated by the never-ending struggle to not shit yourself. Which brings me to the things about the game that I love. Let's start with the character creation. You can choose from a few presets of science specialties or decide to do an internship and discover what you love in a very hands-on kind of way. The actual skill and trait systems are obviously very heavily inspired by Project Zomboid, but it also isn't quite as robust. There's still a good amount of variety to choose from though that you can definitely get silly with. For example, my roided up, exceedingly masculine scientist lady who specializes in defensive combat, is afraid of violence, and is at extra risk of shitting herself. I don't feel like I've been able to make a character that looks this frightening since Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And a lot of that stems from the obviously low-res smashed pug face graphics the game is stylized in, which has never done much to make people great in the looks department. But man, when it comes to the environments, I know there's a lot of other retro stylized games out there and even more coming on the horizon, but I gotta level with you guys. I haven't really played many of the first person titles. And I definitely might need to fix that because when I hit the hallways of the gate facility and started crawling through the vents, I was hit with a stereotypical wave of nostalgia that up until this point, I'd actually never experienced as a millennial. They even nailed the hokey over-the-top quality of the voice acting from games like its spiritual predecessor, Half-Life.
I'm experiencing an insufficiency of food.
Ah!
Big day today, Freeman.
When you package up this late 90s, early 2000s style with modern, fluid gameplay mechanics and movement, including enemies that actively track and threaten you on literally every height level, that's a recipe for some top-tier nostalgia porn right there. But Abiotic Factor isn't an otherwise empty and void game that's just made to be a millennial nostalgia vehicle. Far from it. The gameplay is rewarding, the crafting system is robust, and the skill leveling and story progression give you a lot to sink your teeth into and keep you engaged. I'll compare it to another open world multiplayer survival game I've played a lot of, that's the Forest/Sons of the Forest. The Forest games illustrate what I found my experience to be in a lot of open world survival multiplayer games, which is that the open concept is taken very seriously and you're rarely pointed in a specific direction to achieve the game's end content goal. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of merit to that approach, but there's something refreshing about always having a waypoint and knowing what the next step to progression is, but without having the game hold your hand and get in the way of your experience by over-informing you, like some modern games. Abiotic Factor rides this line perfectly. You can get exactly as involved as you want, with computers and audio recordings scattered throughout the map to help you get progression clues, sometimes prompting you recipe ideas, and of course dish out some delicious lore. But they're never a requirement to scour through. You can choose to plot a direct course and power through story progression, but if you want to choose to hang out at your base and hyper-fixate on boiling enough water to fill 5 water coolers for hours on end, you don't have to worry about forgetting what you were supposed to be doing when you finally come out of your tunnel vision wondering how many days have passed. Not that anyone would ever do that.
Have you been boiling water for the last 20 minutes?
I need it all to be full. There's a lot of crafting already and cooking recipes. In fact, for an early access game, it's got a surprisingly solid amount of content to play. Getting through the section of storyline that's currently available took me and my friends about 25 hours, although some of that was admittedly...
For fuck's sake, we've got plenty of water.
Calm down, I'm almost done. And even though we've reached the end of the available story, there's still sections of the gate facility that I'm sure we've missed. There's at least one level 5 keycard we haven't opened, and every now and then we're realizing there's open areas we've just straight up not been in yet. Yeah, sure, but it's an early access game. There's probably not going to be any support or major updates for a long time. Ordinarily, I'd agree with you. I honestly have a love-hate relationship with early access games that tends to err more on the side of, I don't really love them. But Deepfield has a really impressive roadmap for what they expect content to be for the year, with a 1.0 release expected sometime this winter. Until then, we're hopefully going to be getting new sectors of the facility opened, new portals to explore, enemies, craftables, helpful resources, and a slew of goodies in both summer and fall before 1.0. So is Abiotic Factor worth buying in early access? No, honestly, it's not all that. Yes! Even if you don't have a group to play with, it's one of the rare multiplayer survival games that I'd actually play through on my own just because it's that fun and intriguing. And if you end up picking it up, there's always a chance that we might play it together on stream sometime. Just saying. Thanks so much to my supporters for helping make this video possible. Leah S. over on Patreon, and Rue on Top, who is a channel member.
I squeeze the gas till my clips is done. Till my clips is done. I squeeze the gas.